Welcome to Mortgage Momentum. Smart guidance, real stories, better home decisions. We are your hosts. I'm Jarod Temple.
And I'm Danielle Hugunin. Thanks for joining us today. This is your go-to space for strategy, stories, and staying sharp in an ever-shifting market.
Let's jump in and get the momentum rolling.
Welcome back to Mortgage Momentum. I'm your host, Danielle Hugunin.
And I'm Jarod Temple. Welcome back. Let's get rolling. Today we have Maggie Allen, a past client of Danielle's, and her realtor, Casey Williams, in the studio with us. And the theme of today is affordable housing. And we want to talk about Maggie's remarkable story and how she found the perfect house. So,
am I a past client of Danielle's? I'm not still your client.
ooh.
You're my client for life,
Yes.
Maggie.
Oh,
You already bought your house, but you're still a client.
Because I'm going to bother you with questions forever.
Perfect. That's why we're here.
yeah.
Amazing.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that's great. Yeah, of course. Client for life.
Yes.
For sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's set this up with how did you and Danielle meet, Casey? Do you want to tell us that story?
I'll jump in.
Gosh, when I moved to Lawrence February 1st, 2010, and immediately started bartending at Teller's downtown Lawrence. And Danielle would come in with all kinds of different agents all the time, or with her spouse, and sit at the bar. You always sat at the bar.
Wine night.
You would never sit in the dining room.
That's
Always
because
at
of
the bar.
you. You were there.
We had so much fun. And they would come in, and the conversations I would hear while I was washing dishes would be like, really? I want to be doing this.
Like, sounds really catty.
And
I don't want to.
It was really amazing because everyone would fight over the bill, and
I actually remember that.
everybody would throw their cards out, and everybody would say, let me get this. I'll get it. And then I would say, who's going to tip me the most? And then
That's a fair question.
And I would pick whoever said the most, and that's kind of how things started. And then it turned into, after my second failed attempt.
So you decided to not be a lender. Wise choice. You chose the more glamorous job, selling real estate, right?
Yes, 11 years now. But after two failed attempts, we did celebrate on that third try finally. Yeah.
Was
And-
there a reason you picked real estate over lending? Was it the math?
I think it was more about some of the agents that would come in. They're still my dearest best friends, and they're now my neighbors.
Uh-huh.
We all live in East Lawrence now. We're all in the
Yes.
East Lawrence Club. But it just kind of felt right.
They were more fun than me. That's what he's trying to tell you.
No,
You can be honest.
we have so much fun.
We did. And yes, third try is a charm. We popped some bubbles, we had some drinks, we celebrated. I
Yeah.
remember.
And there's nothing like real life real estate is nothing like the exams. I mean,
No.
nothing. It's really, it has nothing to do with, there's a few legal questions, but it's nothing like the real interpersonal communication and,
What is it like? What's a day in the life of Casey Williams,
gosh.
the realtor?
It depends on if I'm a listing agent or a buyer agent, but it depends every day. Houses list every day, and say I'll have a full day free. No. If a house lists, depending on how many buyer clients I have, my day is booked. Sometimes I show the same house to 2 or 3 different buyers. And there's been times where I've written 3 offers for the same house.
Oh, yeah.
And then not get the house for any of my clients because it just depends on the property, and the price point and the market.
It has to be hard, though, not to get too emotionally invested in those situations.
Yeah. And I feel sometimes that I do care too much because I always want my clients to win. Because if they win, then I win. And it's win-win-win.
Yep.
Right. Well, we all like to win, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was way too emotionally invested in getting this house. That's for sure.
Honestly, I've sold over 350 some houses in the last however many years, and you're my favorite. You're one of my favorites. I don't want to
Aw.
pick, but I really did have the most fun because it was challenging, but I knew how to get through the steps, and by talking with Danielle and then getting permissions and amendments to do certain things. We can get into that in a moment, but it was awesome. It was kind of meant to be, I think.
Yeah.
How do
Well,
how do
let's
you
back-
guys know each other?
Yeah, let's back it up. How did
Maggie.
you guys meet?
Also bars. I started to think about how many friends I have that I haven't met at a bar, and it's not many, but bars that we drank at together and bars that you worked at,
Yeah.
and just so drinking together.
How long ago was that?
The same amount of time, almost 16 years.
Yeah.
There was one night that really sticks out to me. The year before I passed my real estate exam and really started going off, I was working at 3 different places. I was working at merchants. Tellers became merchants. I also worked at 715. And on Wednesday nights, I worked at Frank's North Star Tavern in North Lawrence. And it was karaoke night.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it was so special. We were talking about soundtracks that we liked, like
Yeah.
from movies, like movie soundtracks.
Mhm.
And I had told her about the specific movie that I really loved the soundtrack to. And she came in one night and gave me a copy of my favorite, like it's Great Expectations, that soundtrack with Ethan Hawke and
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow.
I think you were telling me at the time you were having trouble finding a DVD copy of it. And
Yeah.
at the time I was managing a video store. So I had connections and got one. Yeah.
I think I cried. It was so special.
And
So-
I also remember you requesting that I sing Whitney Houston to you. You're the.
I will always love you.
It was I want to dance with somebody, I think.
Oh,
But you're
yeah.
the only person I'll sing Whitney Houston for because it's too hard.
so we're a singer too, hidden talents.
Just a karaoke singer, so I don't think that counts.
Is there any other kind?
My style of bartending, people will sing.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're
True.
laying down.
So the real question is, did you give him a CD? How did you give him a soundtrack?
Oh, I gave him the whole DVD of the movie. Yeah.
Oh, the
Yeah.
movie. I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
Okay.
you. Okay.
So then how did Danielle come into the picture? Tell me you guys met at Tellers, right? I'm sure.
Right, but how did you?
How did Maggie and Danielle?
Well,
I mean, you guys have been talking about buying a house though for a while before I
right.
was in the mix, right?
We had a conversation one night at the bar at the Bourgeois Pig, and I had just been through a home buyer's course that was at the local public library, which was really informative.
Okay.
But I came out of that. I mean, I had absolutely no idea how to buy a house. Like, I didn't know where to start. And everybody I knew who had one had bought. It was like so long ago that they were like, oh, I don't remember what I did. And I'm like, great. Anyway, so I went to this course at the public library, which was great. And they, laid out all of the steps and gave us a notebook that said, here's what you need to do. And so even though I came away from that sort of having a better idea of what to do, I also thought, well, I can't do that. It's still like when I got an idea of how much a mortgage was going to be on the houses that were in supposedly my price bracket, I was like, I can't do that. And I was really depressed about it. And then I ran into Casey just not long after, and I was like, oh, this is what I've just been through, and I'm kind of down about it. And he said, wait. And he pulls out his phone.
Really good impression, by the way.
He pulls out his phone, and he's like, I want to show you something. This house went on the market today. It's not going to be there tomorrow, so don't get excited about it, but I just want to show you. these things do exist and you can afford them. You just have to be ready to go when they come up.
Great advice.
So get pre-approved, and then we start looking for a house. Don't find a house and then get pre-approved. You're not going to get it. And I was like, okay, all of that makes sense. And that was information that wasn't given to me in the course.
Right.
So that was like in October of last year. And I was still dragging my feet about like what I wanted to do. And then it was around February, this house came on the market that I was like, oh, there's another one that like, that could be mine if I'd just gotten my act together, and I didn't. And so I'm okay. I know I'm not going to get this house, remembering what Casey told me. I was like, I'm not going to get this house. That's fine. But when the next one that's like this house comes up, I want to be ready to go. So I texted Casey and I was like, all right, I'm pulling the trigger on this. What do I need to do? And that's when he said, you got to get pre-approved, talk to Danielle. And that's when I got in touch with you.
I remember you texting me or calling me, I don't know, and just, of course, very Casey style, like, oh my gosh, my best friend Maggie, she's the greatest. She doesn't think she can buy a house, but I know that you can work your magic,
Well, we had a conversation, and you were like, if you have any first-time home buyers, please, Bellbank is offering the most insane things that no one in the nation at all can even compare to. So I sent her to, I always send clients to 3 people, but I was like, I really want you to talk to Danielle and really compare. But when you told me some of the things you were able to do, I was like, oh my gosh, because nobody is doing that.
Right.
I think I even late night texted you.
Probably.
I was like,
that's what we do.
I was like, VIP person, ready to go. Call her tomorrow morning or immediately, like this. Because I think at that point, did the house that you bought, had it just hit the market?
It was on the market when she called me.
It had been on the market. And that's when I was like, oh, I'm not going to get that one, but that's okay. I just want to get ready to go.
And you called me and I could tell you were nervous, you were hesitant, you were already like apologizing. I don't think that, whatever. And I'm like, just fill it out. It's going to be okay. We're going to make it easy. We're going to make it fun. So you did.
You got the application in.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And that was, it was so easy. It's like all of the stuff, like even though going through that course and knowing all the things I needed to do, it's still scary because it's like, I don't know, it just feels like such a big step. Right. And it feels like, oh, I have to remember all of these things that I'm supposed to do. But you don't, because you've got a realtor and a lender, and they, that was the beauty of it, is you guys were like, okay, here's the next step.
Yeah.
Here's the thing you fill out. Get this submitted, and then I'll get back to you. And it was like, and that's, after like going through the first few steps, I was like, oh, I'm in such good hands. And I felt better about it.
Good.
So then it was just about like waiting to find out if I was a good, responsible, full adult who people will give money to.
I think I called you like 2 hours after you filled your application out. It was really fast. And you answered the phone, I remember, and you were like basically ready for me to tell you something negative.
Yeah.
Like, why are you calling me so quickly, right?
Red flag that soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that wasn't the case.
No.
So you got the application, and take us through the process that you have when you get an application.
It's really boring and not worth talking about. Maggie's way cooler than this. But yes, you fill out, if you like filling out forms and answering questions, the application is for you.
Riveting.
You know what? I actually do, though.
And you did a great job. And so then, boom, it pops into my inbox and I work through it, and you were very thorough. So you provided the pay stubs, the documents I needed. Ooh. It only took me like 10 minutes to go through it. And I remember calling you and you being worried. And then we talked about, You were so overwhelmed at the fact that I was calling to tell you that you were pre-approved and that I could get you a grant, and I think you might have even cried.
I definitely did, because I was just waiting for you to say like, oh, it turns we found out you're a scumbag, so please go away.
Maggie.
But I remember it felt the exact same way that when I got my diploma from college, and I went up to the offices where you're supposed to get them, and they just handed this envelope to me, and I was like, oh God, what is this? And they're like, it's your diploma. I'm like, I'm not giving it back, and just ran away.
Cracking me up.
So it was like every time I find out, like, oh, I did everything right. I have good credit, really? Oh, okay. Well, I'll take your loan. I'm not giving it back.
Yeah. So
Oh, I do have to give it back. That is kind of the point of a loan, right?
Over 30 years. Yeah.
I remember we talked, and I gave you good news, and I said, is there a house that you might be interested in? And then you gave me the address of the one that you didn't think would be there still. We
Right.
talked about the payment, and you were actually totally cool with the payment. I knew I could get you a grant for $2,500, but I wasn't positive that I'd be able to get you the extra $15,000, just because it's a grant that is only funded quarterly. If they're out of money, they're out of money.
Yeah.
So we asked for a really long closing because we were really hoping that we could get those funds for you.
So she got the $2,500 grant.
Right.
And that was from where?
That's just a Fannie Freddie grant.
Okay. And then on top of that, you got $15,000.
But she didn't get that right away.
But
so
okay.
talk about so you went to see the house.
Oh yeah, and it's and it was the house, like the house that like lit the fire under me. It was still there waiting for me.
I couldn't believe it.
And I feel like we walked through the front door and we were there for like 5 minutes, and Casey's like, you got to put a bid on this house, because like the location was great and the size, and it just, I don't know. I'm so in love with it that I don't know if I can describe it in a reasonable manner.
I mean, I brought the MLS sheet to go over a few key facts, because when I remember walking in and being like, oh my gosh, because it's been on the market for 32 days.
Which is a long time then.
In
this market,
especially in that location. Mm-hmm. I mean, you essentially are walking into, I don't know, if you wanted to sell your house tomorrow, you could probably sell it for $50,000 more than what you paid for.
Right, yeah.
But there were a lot of hoops that we had to go through to get there. But I remember going in and being like, oh my gosh, all this needs is new flooring and paint and maybe a couple other things. And it's perfect. Like, why hasn't someone...
No one could just see the vision.
Yeah.
It was waiting for Maggie, that's why.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The layout of it is terrific, and it was like just the right size for me. Like I didn't want something too big, because I don't want to pay all the utilities on something that's more than I need, and I don't want to clean more than I need. And so like, and a huge yard and this lovely neighborhood, and it just, I just loved it, and I did not understand why it hadn't gone yet. It almost feels kind of spooky that it hadn't gone yet. Like it was my house.
It was your house.
I really thought like a cash buyer was going to come in and scoop it up and flip it.
Yeah.
And then make a profit.
Yeah.
And no one could see that vision. And it's...
Except for you, Maggie.
There's just certain things that, typically there's flooring and there was the carpet had been ripped up.
Right.
And I'm sure like multiple people had walked through the home and seen that and then been like turned off because there was no flooring. So...
Or can we even get a loan with a house that doesn't have any flooring, right? There's challenges.
Yeah, but those challenges can be done.
Yes.
Especially if you go under contract in mid-March and do May... What did we
May 1st.
May 1st, yeah.
Because we wanted the money, which was gonna...
And then another thing a lot of people don't know is, especially renters out there, if you close on a loan, say like we did May 1st, or was it May 2nd? it was May 1st. So your first mortgage payment wasn't June 1st, it was July 1st.
Yeah.
So you skip a month. And a lot of people, when they first buy a house, they're like, oh my gosh, I've got a lease. How am I going to do, how am I going to slowly move in if I want to do renovations or paint or do this or that? That's when I'm like, oh my gosh, check this cool thing about loans out.
Yeah.
You get to skip a whole month.
I had 2 months to remodel the house before I moved in.
Before you, yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't have to worry about paying the mortgage right away. And so it was just paying my rent and working on the house before it was time to move in.
So I think that one of the things about this story that to me is even extra and really speaks to, industry people think, oh, the lender, the realtor, who's your lender, who's your realtor, but nobody really talks about the importance of the relationship between the lender and the realtor, and even the realtor representing the seller. We knew that person and we'd all worked together before. And so, you had 3 people, even the
Right.
seller's agent that were advocating for your success.
Right.
And we were able to work together and come up with a plan that satisfied the loan, made the sellers happy, and allowed you to get into this house. I mean, it was amazing. But I think that without that relationship and without having that work together mentality, it wouldn't have happened.
And I know this is probably going to sound like really silly to you guys, especially because it's your job, but like just in case there's anybody else who didn't know this, I didn't understand that buyers had a real estate agent. I just thought like you dealt with the person selling the house.
Oh.
And so it was, taking that course at the public library, that's where I learned that. And I was like, oh, well, I know who mine's going to be. And then, and then I talked to you later. And then it was, so I think that's, if you're a first time home buyer and everyone who owns a home is useless at giving you information, it's good to know that you should get a realtor to help you buy the house, it's not just for selling houses.
And the
help
seller
you
pays for
navigate
it.
These,
Yeah.
well,
And also the listing
always.
agent they're
Yeah.
representing the seller and the seller's best interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in my 11-year career, I've been the listing agent. And when I become essentially a buyer agent, you become this thing called a transaction broker, and you're not representing either party.
right.
So if you were to ask me advice, like, oh, what offer should we put in, or if the seller says, if negotiating any repairs, for instance, like when we were going through the process of, we had a major water issue thing that happened in the middle of it. There were ways that had I been representing the seller, that would not have,
Right.
I would have just said, oh, well, sign this amendment and take it as is. But since you were represented by a buyer agent, there were ways that you got essentially all brand new
I
plumbing.
have new plumbing, yes.
Yeah.
The other thing that was really helpful working with you was, like I wouldn't have known who to call to have the house assessed.
Inspected.
Thank you. I wouldn't have known like which sewer guys to call or electricians and things like that, and plumbers and all of those things, like because I've never owned a home,
Right.
I've never dealt with all these things. I could ask my folks who they call or whatever, but like you who've dealt with so many homes have special knowledge, and that's another big benefit of having a buyer's agent representing you to tell you who to call, so that the place that you're getting.
Yeah, they're a
is-
trusted advisor.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, part of what they're there for.
Yeah.
For sure. So you guys are navigating through these things, inspections, right? I do want to point out that the seller had also agreed to pay for your closing costs. So you had saved some money that you thought was not enough for a down payment. Totally was.
Yeah.
But we were really going to try and get you this grant. But, you were able to move forward without it. So here we are in inspections. You're working your magic completely, by the way. And then I remember the day they refunded that grant, we got up like super, super early in the morning because it's first come, first serve, right? And so I'm like, I've got to get this money for Maggie. It was $15,000.
Holy mackerel.
You know, and
Did you get up earlier or was it Stacy?
well, it was Stacy. Give Stacy some props.
Just curious.
She's my
Thank
better
you,
half,
Stacey.
so you know I wouldn't know how to do that if I
Mad props to
had
Stacey.
to. She's the one. But we got it, and I remember calling both of you. You might have even been together, actually. You might have been having drinks. That might have been the time you sent me a picture of you guys like having drinks at the Bourgeois Pig to tell you that you got the money. And at that point, you know, you definitely were getting the house. You'd already gone through inspections, and so now there's this extra amazing, incredible news.
Yeah.
And it was what we were hoping for, but it was just the stars continuing to align for you.
Right. And having that meant that all of the money that I'd saved for a down payment could go towards, you know, fixing up the house and,
Right.
you know, buying a fence and all of the things I thought I was going to have to wait a year or two to do.
Right.
I can do this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And with that money, we were also able to use some of that to get you an amazing interest rate of 5.99,
Right. Yeah.
which was way lower than where they were. So, I mean, your payment was better. You had funds. It was really probably one of the most beautiful stories of my career, honestly.
Well, and you know, I'm so amazed by everything you did to like make it so affordable for me. And I had a goal of like what I wanted my mortgage to be, so that I could, you know, still have a fairly comfortable
Still go have
life.
drinks
have a
everywhere with your
cocktail.
friends, right?
when you're paying rent, and it's, you know, and my rent was pretty cheap, but also you know, when you pay cheap rent, you're usually not very happy in the place where you're living, which
Right.
was, you know, my story. But it's also like spending so much more money, even though it, you know, it is your house, and it's a big benefit, and you're building wealth and all of that. Just that transition of paying a little bit of rent to so much mortgage is a little scary.
Yeah.
And so I had an idea of like, well, this is about the most I can pay and still have a decent life.
Right.
And you got like way under that. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like it could not have gone better. And I'm so grateful. I just think you're both just like house finding wizards, and it's so
You
amazing.
love that. We need capes. The dream team.
Yes.
I think Casey would be the wizard. You'd be a witch, right? oh, no?
You can be a wizard if you want.
Wizardess?
Little witchy.
I'm not really sure how to take that. I feel like they think I'm a really nice, awesome person, and then we're throwing that at Jarod.
I totally kid. She's amazing.
So, I mean, it was amazing. The stars definitely aligned. It was one of the best stories, and you were so excited. And honestly, it was just forever. Like I just feel like all these things came to fruition, and then we had to wait forever to close.
Yeah.
Because we were waiting for these grant funds.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there were some other funny things along the way, like, you know. Were you with him when you guys did the final walkthrough? Was that at your house after the day before?
So, in my career, you know, I've got some buyers that are like, you know what, we don't need to do a walkthrough.
At the end.
And a few years ago, I did a walkthrough on my own, and I remember being really, really sick, and still going to the closing, just being like, okay, I'm gonna just stop by the house, just check it out. And there were squatters in the house having a
This
party.
is why we do final walkthroughs.
Having a party. And I had gone out to dinner at the fish house, and
After the party?
no, this was the night. This was the night before. So this was the last day of April. It was the day before closing, and you know,
Maggie's closing.
Maggie's
We're past
closing.
the squatter
Yes,
story,
right.
right?
the squatter-
Okay.
Because
squatters weren't
you
in
don't
my
even
house.
want to know that story.
There are lots of stories.
That was just the reason. I was like finishing up dinner. I was, you know, solo, and I was like, you know, this is 2 blocks from my house where she lives, bought her home,
Oh, you're neighbors now.
Yeah,
Aw.
we're literally 2 blocks away, and 2.5, whatever. So I end up wrapping up dinner. I even remember I had scallops. Like, I remember all the details. But I remember walking through the house, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at all of the stuff that they've already done, because I hadn't seen some of the things that had been done. And I was like, oh my God, it's gorgeous. And
The flooring's beautiful.
but I'd forgotten during the inspection that the exterior back door light was non-functional.
Right.
And I'd never been to the house at
night.
At nighttime.
Right.
And,
Alone.
yeah. And you know, I'd even turned all the lights inside on because I really wanted to like check everything. Plus I was like admiring what a great job you guys did with the flooring and some of the fixtures in the bathroom and whatnot, and the blah blah blah. But I was like, you know, I'm just gonna check out back to see if some of the sellers' items, because there was a lot of things
People leave
in
stuff.
the home,
Right.
and closings have been held up in the past, and I wanted to be thorough because you're my friend, and I wanted to take care of you, and I wanted to do my due diligence. And so I step out the back door, and the step was a little lower, and I bit it so hard. I'm talking like, and I was wearing shoes, thankfully. Like today I'm wearing Birkenstocks, but luckily I was wearing shoes. I sprained my foot. I broke my foot in college, but it never healed properly. But I knew the moment that it hit the patio concrete, I was not okay.
You called me and sent me a picture, and your foot was elevated, covered in ice.
Yeah, I was like,
Like, do you need a ride tomorrow?
This is not good. And the next morning I woke up and it was even larger. But I remember, I hobbled and hopped.
You came to the closing.
I came.
You were there.
And I immediately went to Kansas Orthopedic, and they were like,
Yep.
yeah.
So you're fine now, but it made it even
Yeah.
more memorable.
Yeah,
Not to
yeah.
be a bad omen.
But
It was
this-
just
Yeah.
even better.
The silver lining of this story is that it happened before I closed, so it didn't affect my homeowners.
There you go.
That's right. You didn't own it.
Exactly.
I
Okay.
love this story so much. I love your
Yeah.
friendship. I'm so blessed to have been a part of this in
Yeah.
both of your lives. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah, appreciate that. Maggie, what would you say to someone in your position before May? What kind of advice would you have for them?
Yeah.
I think if you feel like you're ready to buy a home, well, I already know which lender you need to talk to, but I think the first step is, find an agent you need to talk to, and you already know who that is too.
Or call your lender and ask them who they recommend.
Yeah, either way, so that is the first step, because I would have maybe done some goofy stuff if I hadn't had Casey to guide me. But it also helps to have that team of people
Right.
who let you know what to do. And it doesn't have to be scary. You don't have to feel nervous about it. And I think there are courses online or at your public library like I did, where you can just go and sit and find out the whole thing, get the notes, and it just makes it all make sense. So, I think that was a big help for me, knowing what all the steps are going to be, and then getting the people in place who are going to help me get through all of those steps. And also just learning that, it's not as scary as you think.
Right.
Yeah.
But before that, like if you get out of debt and work on your credit if you need to, I think that was something that I worked on for like 10 years up till I got to this point, but that's a whole other story.
Not everyone is that prepared, but that's okay. They don't have to be necessarily, but there are a lot of people that are afraid. They're afraid to try.
Yeah.
There's a lot of misconception, you have to have more
Sure.
money, etc. I think you're a great example and someone who can really advocate for people who are in that position and feel that way.
Yeah. And I really feel like my conversations with you really helped me understand that, I was in a better position financially than I thought I was. Like, I was like, oh, I actually do have some money. I don't have to live like a pauper anymore. I can buy a house. So even it's just like have a conversation with somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Also, we're not that scary, the lenders.
Yeah.
I mean, I try and like be chill. And
The title loan officer, it sounds really cool, but it is a little bit intimidating.
yeah, we should rethink what that should be. I don't know. But
Loan wizard
There you
or
go.
witch.
I mean,
Which may
that's
not be
really
helpful.
inviting right there.
It's not black magic, I can promise.
But you're right. I mean, I guess that's true, which is why I like to tell people, I'll meet you where you are. If you're too nervous, and you want to text me until you know that you can move forward, fine. That's okay if that makes you feel comfortable and safe, because I'm not going to lie, this is what I do. And I don't like being on the other side of the table either. So I understand it's a lot.
And it doesn't hurt to turn in the application even if it's denied, right? Like that's you can do that and then you find out what's
Right.
going on,
Right.
Well, I think it's not a no necessarily all the time. It's maybe a not right now. And this is
Right.
what
But
you
sure,
need to
afraid
do
of
to
that.
get yourself lined up to where you are ready. And not knowing or assuming that you don't qualify or can't do it. Let's find out and let's know.
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. Like in the last 2 years, I've had a lot of buyers and sellers be reluctant to sell their house and then buy because of interest rates. And they need to understand on both sides, buyers and sellers, that there's ways to buy the rate down. But if people continue to rent, you have to understand your interest rate is 100%. And when I tell people that, it kind of makes them like kind of step back and be like, oh. And then I have the conversation about refinancing in a couple years, because even though you purchase, you still have an asset, and from that, even at a 6% interest rates or 7% or whatever some of my clients have acquired in the last couple of years, they've learned, they can refinance, do seller incentives, buy rate. I always confuse it. Rate buy downs,
Sure.
and then get in the position that they feel more comfortable. And it's really win-win in the grand scheme of things. And if people have a 30-year mortgage, rates are always going to go down. They're going to shift, but most people own their houses for, some 5 to 10 years, some for 45 years. You never know. So
I'm never moving again. I can't do it again.
Darn it.
I think the key takeaways, are ask a question, ask a professional.
But don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to
of
ask, yeah.
Afraid.
Yeah.
And surround yourself with a team of professionals that know what they're talking about and that can work together to make a major impact on you.
Fun professionals, though.
Fun is always a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
it
Anyways.
matters. It matters who you work with.
Yeah, it does. Relationships matter. Well, we certainly appreciate you guys being here, and this has been fun. I think this is a great story, and one that I think people will resonate with. So we appreciate you guys being here.
We have to wrap up, but before we do, I know you've kind of given your last, piece of advice, but if you have one final word, if there's any last advice you would give someone listening to this, what would it be?
Call me, text me, find me. I'm Casey Williams Homes, Instagram. That's my website. I'm everywhere.
You are. You really are.
Okay.
And having my house, I know it's different for everybody, but it's the happiest I've ever been. And I'm like, I'm so in love with my little house. And every time I pull into the driveway, I'm like, oh, hi, Maggie's house. And it's just like, it just makes me, every day I'm there, I'm so happy. It still needs a lot of work. I still have a lot to unpack, but it's just made me so happy. I'm so glad I did it.
That makes me so happy too. I mean, sometimes I think we get lost in the minutia, but these stories, for me, you know, they really remind me that we are making a difference in people like you's lives. I mean, I love that you pull up every day and you think that about your home. That's incredible.
Even though it still looks like a disaster.
That's okay. It's your disaster.
It's going to be cute, and I'm the one who did it, you know,
It's amazing.
I'm excited about it.
Awesome. One last thing that we're going to do. Okay, so we're going to do a little would you rather. And I think I already know the answer for you. But Amazon or shop local?
But keep in mind, you guys, you're in Lawrence. So Lawrence, Kansas, very local.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And you work retail in Lawrence?
At a locally owned shop.
Okay.
So you would always go local.
Of course.
Okay.
Especially for your British imports.
Brits en masse in Lawrence.
That's right.
Okay.
You gotta shop local. Local matters on so many levels. But if my partner knew, if I ever would shop on Amazon, I would not have a partner.
You feel that strongly.
He's very, very strongly opinionated on that.
I love that.
But shopping local, I mean, it really does matter in so many ways. I mean, downtown Lawrence even probably
It's
in
local.
Kansas City, you know, women-owned businesses, you know, especially in, LGBTQ, Black-owned. I mean, it matters who
you're supporting.
Who you're supporting, and it makes the community better, you know.
Love it.
I can go on and on about it.
Think about the difference of going to Cotton's Hardware versus, you know, another, like a chain hardware store. There have been so many DIY problems that we've had fixing up the house where, like, you go into Cotton's and they'll work it through with you.
Name.
And they you know my name. Yeah.
Like, oh, you again.
And so that's like part of the local experience too. Is just like people look out for each other.
It's people.
It's people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, your neighbors are helping you
I love it.
get your house together.
I love it.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Well, thanks for being here. I appreciate you guys. This has been great.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for listening. If you've taken something away from this podcast today, please like, follow, subscribe. You can send us comments to our email at mortgagemomentum@bell.bank. And thanks for being here, and let's keep the momentum going. Have a great day.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us on Mortgage Momentum. If you got value from today's episode, subscribe, share it with a friend, leave a review, or email us feedback at mortgagemomentum@bell.bank.
We always welcome comments, feedback, and suggestions for future shows. Thanks for joining us, and keep your momentum going. Until next time.